Expect the unexpected from week one starting lineups that were released from the get go to some of the results of the matchups over the weekend. There was no shortage of surprises to kick off the 2024 Fantasy MLR season. On this week's episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show, we break down the drama that happened over MLR's week one. We also go over some players that you need to keep an eye out for this fantasy season's first waiver wire period. And of course, look ahead to what is to come in week two, plus much more. Fantasy Rucker Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode number 98 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of trying to make fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR. Matt and Ryan Yee here with you as always on another edition of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. And the week one has kicked off of the MLR season. Started off pretty crazy with some pretty wild lineups, finished with some pretty fun endings there, and it was nonetheless a pretty exciting opening to the fantasy MLR season. Matt, how did the first week go for you?
Well, not exactly how I'd expected, but you know what? I think I'm feeling good leaving this week. Like you said, Ryan, started off I think on Friday with all the crazy lineups coming out. Everything was basically unexpected, but we kind of led into some really interesting games over the weekend. And, you know, I would kind of want to say that I have a crystal ball, but I was clearly able to know exactly what was going to happen. So, we had a really great weekend of games. I'd say all the games were fairly good except a couple of them.
Yeah, and we'll break all that down in this episode again. Got a jam-packed one with how much went down in that opening week. We're going to break down all of week one's matches and the drama that happened from both a rugby perspective and from a fantasy perspective that went down over the weekend. Get into some latest updates from around the league. Of course, also latest updates when it comes to leagues in the Fantasy Ruckers realm. We'll get into some players to look at as well heading into week two. Definitely something to look at with how crazy the lineups have been in this first week, which we'll break down.
Welcome to Fantasy MLR. For everybody who did not play last year, everybody who's doing the weekly challenge. Welcome to the craziness that we call Fantasy MLR, because the lineups that came out this week, boy, the Discord was going crazy. I know myself. I think I had nobody in my first 4 picks starting in any lineups. And that is not great.
Definitely called for a scramble to the waiver wire ahead of the weekend as those picks were coming out. So again, this waiver wire this week is going to be just as important, if not more. And then of course, we're going to look ahead to the matches coming up in week 2 and what to look out there. We got a jam-packed episode in this one to kick off the 2024 Fantasy MLR season. I mean, a lot of drama, Matt, but I mean, after we went through it all, people enjoying the leagues. It was really, really cool and a lot of fun to watch other people enjoying the drama that is Fantasy MLR. Not just us in the Fantasy Ruckers League, but everyone that wanted to partake this season got the chance to do that. And it was cool to see here. Like you said, Discord popping off.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And we got a game day Discord channel now. So people were that was going off during the games. I mean, if you're looking for a place where you just want to talk fantasy MLR, just talk MLR in general, the Fantasy Ruckers Discord is the place for you.
Absolutely. So let's say it like we say every single episode. If you aren't in that Discord already, give it a try. Join it. The link is down below in the description on the YouTube video, on the pod. A lot of cool people over there. A lot of big names from the community, MLR community, plus people that just have a passion for rugby and a passion for the MLR. Like Maddie said, you can talk with them there. got a whole bunch of channels for people to interact, even if you're not in the fantasy space. Just a really, really cool fantasy MLR and MLR community that is growing there. I think we're approaching in almost on 100 people in there, which is a lot, really, really cool to see. And then make sure you're giving us a follow as well at the Fantasy Ruckers. The handles are up above on the YouTube video, down below in the description on the pod. That's where all of our latest social posts, updates with regards to fantasy MLR are being posted. So if you want to follow along, that's the best place to do it. Got a whole slew of new social media content out there, from waiver wire pickups, starts of the week, weekly challenge, team of the week that'll be coming up. A lot of great stuff on socials. And of course, the revamped website, thefantasyruckers.com, is up and running. Kudos to Oddball Gentleman, Alistair Kirschpool, who has put blood, sweat, and tears and a whole lot of time into that website. We'll get more into it at the league update here in just a bit. But without him, we definitely wouldn't be where we are at 1 week in. A whole bunch of chaos going on, and he was a big reason why we were able to take a stranglehold of the ship and keep it going here in fantasy circles. But check out thefantasyruckers.com. Looks really, really cool. But all right, let's get into it, Maddie. Before we kind of get into the week that was, let's talk about some of the latest news and notes from around the league. And we'll open up by, I guess, some of the things that we saw over the weekend that is of note. Gotta say, pretty happy with the attendance with the Major League Rugby. Had some pretty solid matchups to open up the 2024 campaign, and we had a few teams celebrating some pretty big milestones. Obviously have some brand new teams in there, including Anthem Rugby Carolina, who have posted that they had over 2,300 people at their opening inaugural match, which is a pretty solid number. I like to see it. I think that's really cool to see for the MLR and what is a relatively new league in the North American sports landscape.
Yeah, I mean, it's encouraging. I hope that we get that big San Diego attendance number that we got last year. Again, when San Diego plays at home. It's encouraging. It's unfortunate it looks so small in some of the big stadiums that they're in. But hey, it is what it is. I'm glad we're in the thousands. I think it's an encouraging sign for the league that, some teams are selling out their stadiums. Not much else to say on that.
And I mean, also with some established teams too, the Houston SaberCats in their home opener had a sold out crowd there, which was cool to see.
And Houston was making a concerted effort to try and match the New England Free Jacks in terms of game day experience. I think they had like a country singer beforehand. They had like a whole tailgate party going on. So I think teams, at least the Houstons, the Seattles. I mean, Seattle's already been doing it. They've always had a very loyal fan base, but some of these other teams are starting to catch on and realize that, hey, we need to put some effort in the same way that the New England Free Jacks are doing if we want to continue to grow our team within the community.
The DAL Jackals now have a dance team apparently now.
I did see that. Same with Miami has a dance team as well. I think I saw that too. So good for them. Way to go. But look, Dallas Jackals, we can talk about this. They've come a long way.
Yeah.
They've come a long way. I'm going to say that
you might say
outside of attendance, they learned how to put together a lineup post. Yes. They forgot that maybe they need to spell some names properly, but they stopped. They moved off Microsoft Paint or whatever, and they finally moved into an actual graphic design software. Might have been copying some other teams, but
it was with the upgrade package. You got both an updated social media team and a dance team as a package for the 2024 year, I guess. But nonetheless, though, in lieu and in tandem with the big crowds that we were seeing over the course of the past weekend, pretty good rugby we were seeing as well, which has led to our very first team of the week announcement from the MLR, the first 15. See some recognizable names on there. Obviously, Mac Mason making his first appearance back in the league, having a stellar game with Seattle from the booth.
I don't know how I feel about that one.
Friend of the show, Andrew Coe. You don't know about Andrew Coe?
No, Andrew Coe deserves it. I don't know about the Mac Mason pick. I know he scored 20 out of 25, but there was a guy that was named Jason Potros that was absolutely tearing it up.
Yeah. But I mean, I think there's a little bit more merit when you're taking on a San Diego Legion team that's a little bit better than Anthem Rugby Carolina there. But nonetheless, we'll break down those games. Andrew, co-friend of the show, is on there with 2 tries, 2 beauty of it tries on that one. A lot of NOLA Gold players in what was kind of a interesting matchup. Jordan Jackson Hope on there, Taniela Filimoni. What's cool, and we're going to start getting into it in our Fantasy Ruckers team of the week, is that you're going to see some familiar names that kind of translate over, which is always, we mentioned this on the show before, is that that is what we're trying to reflect. We're trying to reflect good performances, reflect good fantasy performances. As close as we can get to that is going to be the most enjoyable experience when it comes to our stats breakdown. It's something that we're continuing to evolve and continuing to look at very, very closely. And there are some familiar names on this list, of course. Reese McDonald is obviously the big name that we got to mention on that we'll hear throughout this show with the performance he had with the New England Free Jacks. He is obviously on that list as well. But there you go. Team 15, first 15 there. You can check that on the social page.
I think, Ryan, do you think the MLR is obligated to put at least one Anthem player in the team of the week?
Well, see, that's where I was going to go to it. So they select Chase Susnevich, the 9.
No, he should not be.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
He did not.
I think
did not have that 9. I have in my notes that the 9 position could probably use some work on that team.
And I'm trying to look through the Team 15 quickly here. Is there any team that we're missing on this list? Utah, Dallas, Aurora DC, San Diego. I mean, I think I see everyone on the list.
I remember Jam Delay telling us something that at least one player for each team does need to be on the team of the week.
Yeah. So
or something like that. So
I mean,
again,
when it comes to
Chase, like, I guess it was tough. Like, who else you put in there? Oscar Collard, you can't beat out Mac Mason.
Sure.
Ty Al-Jabari, no, you can't beat out any of the wingers that are on there. Mateo Gadsden, nope, still can't beat it out. Kale Hodgson, no.
And we'll get into kind of the fantasy performances that are reflective of that. Some interesting points. Some that we predicted in terms of the performance, like the 9 position was not one that really had much fantasy output this season, which kind of is evident in this team, in this first 15, where there was no really highlight performances at that position. Even the back row was interesting. Not many, at least it's not as many points as you'd usually typically see.
Because none of them were starting, Ryan.
That's true. But we'll get into it. But nonetheless, though, Team 15, first 15 for the MLR's first week has been posted, and we'll break down obviously the Fantasy Ruckers team of the week here shortly when we start breaking down week 1's matches. Last thing that we need to get to is some older news that came out after we released last week's podcast. The playoff format is out, and a little bit different. Obviously, we got 6 teams in the East Conference, 6 teams in the Western Conference. What has historically been done is that there was a bye for those top seeds. This year, everyone's playing a match in that opening conference semifinal round, and only the top 4 are making it here. It isn't that like or you're adding a 4th one going into this instead of having the 3rd one kind of going in with that pseudo by kind of first round play, but you're going to have the top seed playing the 4th seed, the 2nd seed playing the 3rd seed in each respective conference, and you just move on in bracket form from there. What do you think? Lots of teams making the playoffs. It's more than half. It's always a question for debate.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's nice to see that there's no team sitting out. Everyone's going to have, I guess,
We're gonna watch a team get absolutely pumped by the New England Free Jacks in that in that Eastern Conference. Yeah. I mean. The Western Conference, different story. I think it's perfect for the Western Conference because the Western Conference, we saw last year just how tight it was. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll see a competitive game from 1 through 4. But on the Eastern Conference, man, some poor team is going to get absolutely pumped by this New England Free Jack squad.
Yeah, it's. I mean, with the way they showed out in that first match,
whatever.
It's going to be interesting. That is for sure. Maddie, any other news and notes that you want to go over before we move on here to a little bit of a Commissioner Yee's League update?
No, I think you covered everything there. It's been kind of quiet on the news and notes fronts. Everybody's been focusing on the week 1, so we better get to it. Oh man,
and we will get right to it.
I do a Josh Henderson.
Hear ye, hear ye. Here is Supreme Commissioner Yee.
Oh my gosh.
With a Fantasy Ruckers League update.
You can't say that after you lost this week.
It's true. But hey, we'll get into that because you had a tough one too. I mean, what a show to not have. What a show to have Vandy not here on this episode when you took the big L by just over 2 points.
I'm not even worried.
Not even worried.
I'm not even worried. We'll get to it when you get to it.
All right, we'll get to it. But hey, before we get into kind of the nitty gritty of that, I mean, we said at the top of the show, the mastermind behind the website, Alistair Kirschpool, oddball gentleman on Discord. I think it is only fitting to start off a Fantasy Ruckers League update with a big shout out to Alistair Kirschpool and all that he has done for the Fantasy Ruckers in terms of getting this prepared, getting this ready, everything that was going down in the week leading up to it. It was down to the wire in terms of making sure this was all working and operating smoothly for our league members this year. And it was continuing to be something that he addressed throughout the weekend and even up to the recording of this podcast in terms of getting the stats up and doing all that stuff. So big shout out to AKP.
Yeah, I mean, he was grinding away on bug fixes, going like as soon as the website went up, he was working through the couple days trying to make sure everybody could have a safe, comfortable weekend heading into the fantasy, heading into the first few matchups. So, yeah, kudos to him. That guy's a legend. He will continue to be the legend and the brains behind the website that you see. Because it looks incredible.
It really does. I mean, compared to if you've been a longtime member of the Fantasy Ruckers community, a viewer of this podcast or listener of this podcast, and been on our website before. I mean, the changes from last year to this year, it just looks so clean. I absolutely love it. It's got links to our show. It's got all the players on there. Just the format of it, the look, the dark mode. I know he was really excited to get the dark mode in there, which was
everybody
good.
Loves dark mode.
It looks fantastic, but it's great. I guess before we kind of get into weekly challenge stuff, I mean, Matt, I'll ask you, man, how was the first week for you in the Fantasy Ruckers League? I mean, you took on Vandy, your rival on the show.
Wow, you gotta hold on. You can't be a rival. I mean, this guy finished 500 last year. That guy's not a rival. This guy's just an insect on your windshield. So, yeah, no, I mean, it was tough. Like, we talked about it. We hinted at it a little bit. Once the lineups got released, JP Duplessis, Gideon Van Vyk, Paul Balakena, Matt Gateau, Lincoln McClutchy, neither of them, all of them out. Not in any starting lineups, not even playing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I lost to Vandy by 2 points, who had Dan Creel in there, and had most of his starting guys playing. Am I worried? No. I mean, that's pretty optimistic for me. I mean, I would have expected that I would have had one of the worst weeks, but there's guys that did a lot worse, or around the same. And I'm not worried at all.
Yeah. And I opened up my fantasy MLR career with an L as well. So I got a rude awakening in terms of this thing.
Welcome
that
to
is
the league, right?
Fantasy MLR. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, kind of not to the extent that you experienced it, Matt, but kind of a similar Cam Dolan, not in the starting NOLA Gold lineup. Ed Fido, not in the starting NOLA Gold lineup. All of a sudden, Billy Meeks is not playing center, and he's the starting fly half for the Hounds, and had him starting at center. Didn't have a center to kind of fill in that role that I could kind of rely on some super points here. So it was an interesting one. But nonetheless, though, we made it through. Matt, tough starts to the year, but again, like we remind all of our Fantasy Ruckers League members, it's a long season. We know fantasy, you can turn things around real quickly. You'll want to keep active on the waiver wire. You'll want to do all these things that's going to put your team back on track. So for the half of the Fantasy Ruckers League members out there that opened up their fantasy MLR careers with an L, just like us, we're there with you. And we're going to help you through it. And we're going to get all of ourselves back on the right track. And for those that came out with the victory, enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not going to be long-lived often here on Fantasy MLR. Because, like we say at the top of the show, expect the unexpected. And sometimes you get hit with something that you just don't know is coming. And things can turn around real quickly.
Yeah. Definitely stick with us. You'll be good. I mean, you'll do better than Vandy and I in our first season. Just trust us on that one. Everybody ends up last at some point, but you won't be as bad as we were.
Well, let's get into another one of our games here, the weekly challenge that we revealed this past week for people who weren't able to get themselves into a full-fledged Fantasy Ruckers league, but were still interested in dipping their toe in the world of fantasy. MLR had 18 people signing up. We want to continue to grow that number on a weekly by week basis. Matt, I may have not done so well in the full-on fantasy thing, but maybe the weekly challenge is my bread and butter. Second highest point total with a lineup of Peter Asue, hooker of the Houston SaberCats, Martin Sigrin of the New England Free Jacks, Mac Mason, Billy Meeks, and Zach Bastrez. So I got 40 points on the week, 4 shy of our top performer of the week, Corleone. Shout out to you, whoever you may be, winning our very first weekly challenge. Maddie, you finished 5th with 34 points. Not too bad.
Yeah, I'm not feeling too bad about it. I mean, I was banking on the fact that Billy Meeks was potentially going to be kicking. I was hoping, but with Adrian Carls there, it's kind of a reach for me. But it was interesting. The first week is definitely difficult. I think someone in the Discord was talking about how difficult it was to stay under the budget because all these new guys are just defaulted to 3.
Yeah.
This week, now that guys' values are getting adjusted, with the way that they performed in the first week, you may see some stronger lineups and maybe some higher points, like especially with guys with the likes of Billy Meeks, who maybe didn't have that great of a performance and is now like dropping in salary. So some of these guys change it. It'll be interesting to see what lineups come out this week with some of these values getting adjusted.
And I think this week is going to be the complete opposite of what we saw last week, because now we're basing it off of 2024 stats. And obviously, it's just week 1. You're going to have guys that didn't appear in the lineup, that had poor performances, that are notable names, that are now going to drop all the way to a $1 value. So I think in this week, it's going to be a free-for-all in terms of just finding the best 5 guys. You might not even fill the full $15, I think, in this week. There are going to be guys there that you'll be able to get for $1 that just did not perform in week 1. That is going to be interesting. So we'll see. It's going to be a completely different game, I feel like, heading into week 2. Keep an eye out on socials for Maddie and myself's weekly challenge lineup that we'll release every single week to give people a little bit of a tip on where to go about and where our minds are at in terms of this weekly challenge.
Yeah, and you clearly want to listen to at least Ryan over there.
Yeah, we did pretty dang good. And hey, if you didn't partake in the first week, it's not too late to keep on joining. The link is in our bio that you can join. We'll continue to release it on social medias. Just got to sign up for an account on thefantasyruckers.com. The weekly challenge tab there on the left is available for you. You pick your lineup, save your lineup, $15 budget. Rules are on socials. Rules are in the Discord channel as well. And you can participate in maybe next week. You'll be on top of our weekly challenge. Last thing I want to wrap up before we get into our week 1 breakdown is, hey, we're having a viewing party this weekend, Maddie.
Let's go.
Week 1 is in the books. Week 2 is now ahead of us. And we want to watch the games and matches with the people. We want to enjoy it. We want to talk about it. We want to see, and I don't know why we think this is a great idea, but give people and our fans a chance to see us react live to the heartbreak that is fantasy MLR while we watch a match this weekend. And the match we have chosen is a 4:00 slotted matchup on Saturday, where Vandy's Utah Warriors take on the Chicago Hounds at home. The NOLA Gold game and Anthem Rugby Carolinas game will be happening at the same time, so we'll definitely keep tabs on that. But we will be full-fledged watching Vandy's Utah Warriors taking on a Chicago Hounds team that looked pretty solid in the monsoon of a weather storm that was in Miami over the weekend. So the YouTube Live link will come out this week, so keep an eye out on there. We'll release it on Discord, release it on socials. Join us on Saturday at 4 p.m. to watch the Utah Warriors take on the Chicago Hounds. Chat with us. We're going to interact with the comments, maybe do a little play-by-play with the matches, and talk a little bit about rugby and the match that we're watching from a fantasy perspective and from a perspective overall. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's the first time we've ever done this.
Yeah, 4 p.m. Eastern, by the way. And you'll be able to leave, chat with us, leave your comments. We'll be able to respond, answer questions. All that jazz, and hopefully, give you an escape from what they call the MLR commentators.
All right, well, let's get into a week 1 breakdown, Maddie. No time to waste here. Full slate.
Well, hold on. Hold on, Ryan.
What are we talking about?
Well, you know me. I got to rant about something.
Okay.
I still hate these stupid water breaks. These water breaks are the dumbest things ever. I mean, these guys can play 40 minutes straight perfectly fine in any other league. But in this MLR, in the middle of, what is it, March, they need a 20-minute water, like they need a water break every 20 minutes. What a joke. I mean, we don't need that. I don't understand. They play one commercial. Like, is it really worth it to have that one commercial? Do we really need that water break? I still hate it. I still don't want it. Take it out of the MLR. Let's play the 40 and let's have a halftime. Do all your commercials at the halftime. You can fit one extra commercial there rather than fitting it in this stupid 20-minute break.
All I can say to that, Maddie, is money talks, and I can only imagine. I mean, we know the state in which the MLR is in its early growing stages. It's North American sports that's its finest. The corporate American.
And then the commentators start calling things quarters, and then I'm like, there's no quarters in rugby, right? There's no quarters in rugby. They're just taking a stupid water break.
All right. Well, outside the water breaks, Maddie, before we get into the full slate of games over the weekend, overall thoughts on the matches that happened. First week of MLR play to start off the 2024 year. I mean, I thought it was a lot of fun. Ranging in broadcast qualities, I think.
Wow.
We had some solid ones. Had some,
I was putting some games on mute.
I mean, yes, and that's why we're having the watch party, Maddie, because
I miss Dallin Stafford. He's got to come back from sevens. But that's why we're having the watch party. I thought it was a great weekend. I think it was great to see the competitiveness from 11 out of the 12 teams. I think it was just like we didn't expect we'll get into it, but like the new teams, 2 out of the 3 of the new teams, I think we saw something that we really did not expect to see. We saw instant competitiveness with some teams that we're rating very highly. And we're seeing teams that, didn't do well last year that are clearly came out to play this season. Guys like Dallas, guys like Chicago, guys like NOLA that are clearly coming out to play. And it really just was a perfect way to kind of just say, hey, we're going to have a competitive year this year. And we're going to get 18 weeks of very solid 18 weeks, I think. 18 weeks of very competitive rugby through 11 out of 12 teams.
Yeah, you had to make that clear there. And we'll get into, I'm sure our listeners and viewers can guess, but we'll get into that one team that's kind of that outlier here. But nonetheless, opening up the 2024 season with a matchup between the NOLA Gold and Old Glory DC. Interesting one in this one, kind of to lay it out. Slow start. Messy play for me. A lot of kind of it was very the continuity wasn't there. It felt like NOLA coming out strong and then just not being able to finish. They'd build up some phases or have a big play, and then something would happen, a mistake would happen that would just negate all of that. Obviously, Old Glory DC only putting up 6 points, 2 penalties for their entire afternoon is obviously a disappointing one for them. But I mean, NOLA Gold was pretty dominant in this one. They were the ones that should have came out with the win in this match here.
Yeah, they were definitely dominant. I mean, they had a lot of early discipline issues. They had handling errors. Like you said, it was super messy. They definitely benefited later in the game when they kind of kept the ball in hand. Old Glory DC, when they had the opportunities, they benefited when they had the ball in hand as well. I mean, they had quick delivery. They had quick ruck speed. I thought they actually had very good flashes of good, solid play. They just, never really had the ball in hand enough to take advantage of that. But yeah, it was messy on both sides. Like you said, the continuity wasn't there. I don't think either team really exceeded 10 plus phases, hardly ever. So yeah.
And from a fantasy perspective, I mean, with a low scoring match like this, 18-6, just there's not going to be many points to be had here, and no player in this matchup exceeding over 15 fantasy points. Your 2 best performances were the centers who scored tries for the NOLA Gold, and that's Taniela Philemoni and Jordan Jackson.
Yeah,
14.
Well, Philemoni being listed as center, but played on the wing, started on the wing on the weekend.
And him, going, scoring that try there for the NOLA Gold. George Jackson Hope obviously scoring his try there. Philemoni 71 meters gained, a try with 9 tackles. Jordan Jackson Hope, a try, 49 meters. Actually, I was actually impressed with how Jordan Jackson Hope looked. And obviously, the big question here was the absence of JP Duplessis. And Jordan Jackson Hope kind of stepping up in the center area there, kind of flashed there with pretty solid play.
Well, I think we saw this from Jordan Jackson Hope last year. I don't think that's a surprise. I think that's what we expect from him with JP Duplessis in or out. I think this team looks a lot different with Ed Fido. I think Harley Wheeler was absolutely atrocious on the weekend. To say it bluntly, I mean, the guy was just throwing the ball around like he didn't even care. I think it's a lot different team with Ed Fido out there. So we'll see. And with JP Duplessis as well. Luke Campbell, a guy I want to shout out. I think, I think one of the comments last year, not that he had fantasy relevance, one of the comments last year was just that he wasn't really that quick in the breakdown. I think it kind of is the same this year. I don't think he's really stepped it up that much. He looked a little bit better, but it's still slow. A guy that I really want to point out is Jonah Ma'u. I mean, this guy is an absolute mutant at the breakdown. Mm-hmm. The way that his head just gets stuck into every breakdown was ridiculous. I think he really only got recorded 1 steal, but his impact at the breakdown was clearly there.
And breakdown steals are kind of that underlying stat, that kind of secret sauce that you kind of can add into your fantasy lineup, because a breakdown steal, I believe, is 2 points. And you rack a couple of those up, and you're turning a fantasy performance that is average to one that is pretty stellar. And Jonah Mao, 13.8 fantasy points, 10 tackles, 83 meters gained, nothing spectacular, but you add the steal in there, and that turns what would be maybe a little bit of an average fantasy performance is something that is quite notable, especially in a week with kind of lower scoring matches in an 18-6 match.
In a messy game though, he's getting 83 meters gained as a back row, and he was clearly getting the opportunity to get the ball. I think he's I don't know how many leagues, and we'll get to it when we get to the waiver wire section. I don't know how many leagues he's picked up, and he was a waiver wire pickup for me, actually a game day pickup for me. And I think he's going to be a real big fantasy contributor. On the NOLA side, last thing before we move to Old Glory, Iona, what do we think here? He had an okay game, but Reese Botha came in and outplayed him. Reese Botha outplayed him in the end of that game. And I question whether, if you're an Iona owner, do you want to spend a roster spot to pick up Reese Botha just in case?
I would do that 100%.
Right?
100%.
Because
we've seen this, right? Kind of the optimism last season with Rodney, and his being solidified as kind of the de facto 10 for the NOLA Gold. We've seen Iona struggle last season, and not to say that Iona is not going to have a good season this year. This is just week 1. I don't want to overreact here, but I think right now you want to mitigate those dangers, and we've seen it before. So I would not be against picking up Reese Botha to just make sure that you have the fly half. If you have Iona, make sure that you have that situation locked down, because when we get into the waiver wires, man, there are some positions that are grim in terms of what's out there and available, and
10 is one of them.
10 is one of them, exactly. So you want to have insurance at that position. Let's shift on over to the Old Glory DC side, Matt, now. Again, when you're scoring 6 points, there's just not going to be much to be had there.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Jason Robertson. He scored the lone 6 points for the NOLA Gold, for Old Glory DC. Obviously has been a player of this franchise before, a veteran. He's obviously has kicking duty, starting at 15 for Old Glory DC. 8.6 points is all right, but again, you're not really anything happy about that. He has the fly half designation right now. I think he's probably, the way that they're looking at it, maybe not after the points, but we'll see. Kind of, can he get that split eligibility? We'll see how that kind of goes. But the guy that I do want to mention here in this one, Matt, before you kind of break down some of yours, guys, is Rob Harley. A game that felt lost for Old Glory DC. Only 22 meters gained, played 78 minutes, but 16 tackles. And when you're in a 6-point game and you're still able to rack up 7.5 fantasy points at the second row position, which you'll start to learn has a deficiency in fantasy point production. Harley, if he's going to be doing that on a consistent basis, he's not going to be dependent, obviously exemplified in this matchup where they only scored 6 points, on the way that his team performs if they have these dud matches. Harley racking up the tackles that he was, it's going to be solid.
Was definitely racking up tackles. If we're talking about tackles, let's also talk about Corey Daniel as well. I mean, he racked up 19 tackles in a losing effort in a low-scoring game. Pretty impressive on that point. For Jason Robertson, Rye, I just want to touch on this. I think the question for me is, like, do you want to spend a back three position just because he's the kicker?
Sure.
But he's not actually getting the production of a back three that you would hope?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. You have to kind of weigh it out. And if you're a guy like Vandy who has both Graydon Bout and Jason Robertson, you're in a tough spot the minute that eligibility changes in 3 weeks, where you're hoping that, hey, I hope Jason Robertson gets in there at 10 or Graydon Bout takes over kicking duties, which seems less likely. A couple guys I think I want to shout out is Tommaso Boney. He didn't really show it too much in the fantasy-wise or fantasy points, just getting 6.1 fantasy points. But the way that his usage is clearly being seen within that Old Glory DC offense, it's clear that they're using him as kind of a go-forward ball, the way that AKP was mentioning during our live draft. It's clear that he's kind of going to be a big part of that offense and at least get the opportunity to have big breaks. Yeah. And I think for a center position, that's kind of exactly what you want.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. 18-6 for NOLA Gold. NOLA starting on the hot foot. Old Glory DC going to look to turn things around. But again, we'll allude to this. We're going to break it down in the preview. They have a tough one coming up in week 2. Not sure if week 2 is going to be the one. But let's shift on to the next matchup of the afternoon on the Saturday. It was the Houston SaberCats taking on the Utah Warriors at home, 8 p.m. kickoff. Interesting match. I mean, it was kind of at the beginning getting a feel out for it. Then Houston really dominated with some of their kicking to start off with. And it's our first team of the week candidates here coming through. Tassi, center for the Houston SaberCats. Huge performance there with 24.1 fantasy points. A big interception try in that one, which was cool to see. The nimbleness. I feel like we didn't see that nimbleness when he was on the Toronto Arrows, but Houston SaberCats, I guess, interjects some of that.
Tough to show anything when you're losing by 70 points.
That's fair enough. But interjecting some of that into that Houston SaberCats back line that we kind of had some questions going into in terms of who was going to be starting there. Tassi looks like a guy that you want to own. I know some people in our Discord chat were happy that they kind of picked him up in last minute, saw that he was starting there, took a flyer on him. And then second team of the week candidate for our second row position, Frank Lachor for the Utah Warriors, 11.7 fantasy points on the week. Again, in a week where there was not much production from the side of second row players. Lachor comes in and has a pretty adequate performance. But overall, though, I mean, Utah was just on the back foot, and it was hard for them to catch up. And by the time that they started putting points on the board, it was just too late.
Yeah, I mean, Houston, their attack looks lethal. I mean, their attack looks really good. And you're looking at an offense that doesn't even have necessarily what we would see as the best lineup that they could have out there. Mm-hmm. Just because you look at that center position and it's, they have guys like Sam Hill, they have guys like Lourdes Vanderskiff, and they're going with Tuala Tassi and Dom McKenna. Dom McKenna, great player last season, but I think that there's, a guy like Sam Hill who they bring in, an international player. Clearly, he's probably the guy there, right? So I think their offense looks really good. And I think also Houston had a really good set piece as well. I think it was good to see their set piece working well.
Yeah. Their first try of the season, I believe, was off the set piece.
Yeah, exactly. And Utah, they had a lack of discipline. They didn't really play with the ball in hand that much. I think they played with the ball in hand a bit more in the second half, and they reaped the rewards from it. But they just kept making mistakes. They kept having turnovers and stuff like that. I think a couple points here is that, I think it was just a mistake for them to start Zion going. I don't understand why they made that decision.
Yeah.
Their offense looked a lot better with McLee out there. And then for the Houston set piece was so strong that Utah had to sub all their front row out at half.
Yeah.
They literally subbed them. I noticed, I watched the second half start and I realized they had all their subs already on. I mean, not the hooker, but they had everybody, they had all their subs on, their front row subs or their prop subs on. I'm like, wow, they really got beat up, eh? that was just ridiculous. So that was kind of funny to see. And just my last note on Houston is maybe, I don't know, like learn how to use an iron once in a while. Like those nameplates, you can maybe iron them on a bit better. Put it on high heat, put it on there, and you'll be good. And it should stick on. You're the only team that has the nameplates falling off. Like they're just dangling off every player that's on the field. So learn how to use an iron. If you need help, I can help you out too. Just reach out.
And what do you think of that? I mean, a lot of teams this year going with the last names on the jerseys. It's growing on me.
It's fine. I don't mind it. I'm not one of those old school guys that just hates it. I think there's some traditions that need to be kept, but there's no traditions in the MLR because it's a young league. So yeah, I like it. Just do it right. There's no point in doing it if they're all lying on the side of the field because they all fell off. So
I mean, as a fantasy calculator, it helps for me kind of distinguishing.
It does.
We went from having teams that had the same color number as their jersey and not being able to tell what the heck number they are to now a little bit more distinguishing.
Ryan, Utah was tough. Utah was tough. Utah, that jersey stinks. that jersey number, I did not know. Like, I don't know how the commentators saw it, but yeah. That was brutal. Right. A couple players, Ryan, though, on Houston. I know you brought up Tassie.
I just want to talk about his stats overall. We'll quickly shift off. I mean, 22 tackles and a try on top of that with the 90 meters gain plus a breakdown steal. I mean, Tassie. I mean, a lot of those meters gained obviously came off that interception, but 22 tackles. I mean, that's exactly what you're looking for in the center position. Consistency. You take away that try. I mean, he's still got a double-digit fantasy point performance. So that in there, and then I'll mention the second row team of the week, Frank Lawshore. Like I mentioned, 80 meters gained, 9 tackles. When you're a second row player and you're your second highest fantasy point performer on your squad, just goes to show you either how well that second row player did or kind of just the lack of fantasy production from that Utah side there. But yeah, both team of the week guys doing pretty well there for their respective squads.
Yeah, they're looking very good. I got for Houston, I wrote down Pita Asu. I think he's a very strong carry. He's going to be great for fantasy. He was a hard runner. And yeah, I mean, 15 tackles, that's pretty ridiculous as well.
Yeah.
But he's a hard runner.
8.1 fantasy points on the year. I mean, if he's going to be a part of that pack that's going to be so successful, it seems like with Houston, that is so dominant and strong. I mean, he's going to start putting the tries in when they start going for somewhere that set piece there closer to the tries.
Yeah,
but yeah
100%.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, agreed. And then on Utah, I actually think it's pretty optimistic for Utah in terms of fantasy-wise. I mean, I thought Spencer Jones looked really good. I think the fact that
fantasy points.
Yeah, the fact that he's getting the opportunity that he didn't really get last year with the arrows, like 58 meters gain. Yes, you got to try as well, which kind of boosts his stats. And the meters gain isn't much to sniff at, but they're clearly looking to him. They're clearly looking at him to be an integral part of their offense. So, yeah, we'll see on that. I also really like Dylan Nell. I think Dylan Nell was one of the new guys they brought in. He got 9.5 fantasy points. Offensively, I mean, this guy looks like a beast. And also, he's just an absolute menace at the breakdown. And I got to shout out a guy named, Michael Manson. They were talking about how the coach was loving the pace that he had. He got 7.3 fantasy points. Not that much, but I think there was a lot of missed opportunities where they just didn't get the ball to him. And he would have had space to gas. So he may be a guy to look at as one of those guys to replace like the Joe Manos of the world.
And I mean, we haven't even touched it yet. I mean, obviously the loss of Joe Mano not being in the lineup from that injury that he suffered in preseason, obviously hurting Utah, not having that weapon out there. We don't know the status of Joe Mano right now. We just know that he's injured. We put him on our IR designation in the Fantasy Ruckers leagues, but just based off of a post from America's Rugby News that he was injured in that preseason match. There has been no diagnosis that we know of.
Yeah, I mean, in the game, apparently it's not serious, but who knows? So we'll have to find out. But yeah, those are the big guys for me. Houston is clearly a team to beat this year and a clear team to watch out for sure.
And again, 22-15, a little bit more high scoring than that first match that we saw. You have Tassie with the 20-plus point performance. Again, nothing crazy from a fantasy side. It just felt like a low-scoring week as a whole. Just not many, tries being scored in this one. Obviously, we'll get to a few names that really had some impactful weeks. But I think felt like some games were just a little bit on the lower end side. I
think it's just the first week, like guys are getting used to each other. There's some teams where I'll bring up is like they just clearly didn't seem connected. And they just need a couple weeks, especially set piece. Set piece was pretty messy in this first week for all the teams at some point. I mean, most of the teams, some of the teams had it locked in, but some of the teams where you expected their set piece to be a lot better, it was just messy. And I think, that drives a lot of the try opportunities as well.
All right, shifting on over to the last matchup of the Saturday. It was 10 o'clock Eastern time. Seattle Seawolves taking on the San Diego Legion in what was the match of the week in our eyes. Coming out with the victory over the Legion, 25-19 in a last-minute try-stopping kind of a victory there, kind of a heartbreak there for the Legion.
Yeah.
Henderson coming out with the shush to the crowd after hitting that mega
big balls in that, man.
penalty there towards the final kind of minutes there, and then Tavita Lopetti going in with the try there to seal the deal for the Seattle Seawolves towards the tail end off of what was a reviewed play that was kind of iffy. Not quite sure what the heck happened there. I watched the replay, try to figure out what happened, but nonetheless, they awarded the try, and Seattle coming out on top in what was a kicking affair to start off with, and then a couple crucial tries there that made a difference.
Yeah, there was started off as a kicking affair. I think a couple of takeaways that I had from this game. One, I think Mikey Teo got even bigger. I didn't know that was possible, but I swear he got bigger. They showed some mugs of him in the camera, and he looked big. But key takeaways: Seattle side, they're still the strong defensive team. We didn't see their set piece really go off like you'd expect. But I think it was just they had some costly handling errors and some costly set piece mistakes that just really hurt them. I think they could have done a little bit better in that sense, especially the fact that San Diego had a red card. Like, a lot of those errors happened during that red card, and they could have sealed this game a bit earlier. From San Diego, I think it's clear that this offense is not the same. This offense is not the same as what it was with Richard Judd at 9. I don't think Tupai is the same. They're missing a lot of tackles in the first half, but they picked it up. They picked it up a lot in the second half. And the other thing, and I just wanted to bring it up, is San Diego looked awful under the high ball. I mean, every time Seattle put it up, I swear San Diego knocked it on almost 5 out of 10 times. Like, you just can't have that, especially when you're going against a clinical team like Seattle.
Some top performers in this one. The top fantasy point scorer in this match was Tavita Lopetti with the late try. 76 meters gained, 5 tackles, a breakdown steal, amounting to 15.6 fantasy points. On the other side, Josh Henderson, obviously with all the kicking that he did, was very, very successful there. 4 penalty kicks, a conversion kick, 15.3 fantasy points. But I think the highlight of this one, and it's a guy that I put a lot of fab down on in our Fantasy Ruckers League, and that was Tony Pulu. Tony Pulu, the question was, who is going to be starting here with this electric back three that is for the Seattle Seawolves? Obviously, you have Lion Afuti, that was such a big fantasy performer last season within our top 5 last year, one of the best back 3 players. You got Duncan Matthews in the mix as well in that space too, and you're just looking at kind of where Tony Pulu kind of matched up, and then the starting lineups came out, and we saw that Tony Pulu was starting in the back 3 along with Jade Styling and
Devin Rousseau
and Devon Rousseau, and it was something that I didn't expect at all, and I thought the confidence and the investment that they put into Tony Pulu to bring him over here, I thought that this guy's going to be great. And he showed that. I mean, 103 meters gained, didn't even have a try, 9 tackles, 2 breakdown steals. I think Pulu is going to be electric this fantasy MLR season if he has that spot solidified for the Seawolves.
That's exactly what I put down here. Tony Pulu can still be electric in the right game. It was a rainy game, so, I mean, and he still showed up. But I think, you get into a high offensive battle game, I can see him absolutely going off this year. So I'm excited to see that, but still trying to figure out how often is he playing? What's that? I mean, he's not young for sure. So it'll be interesting to see. And, do we expect to continue to see Inafuti on the bench? I don't know.
Does Tony Pulu start more than 8 matches this year.
Yeah, I think he starts more than 8. I just
Okay.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That back three is so deep. It's hard to look at that and know exactly who they're going to start from.
I mean, I think they're taking out Jade Styling out of the back three and putting Inafuti in before they're taking out Tony Pulu. I mean, that was my kind of sentiment in that one. So
Yes.
My confidence is higher with Tony Pulu just because of his pedigree than
yeah.
Do you know my confidence?
Yeah, I mean, my confidence has dropped to Duncan Matthews actually because I look at a guy like Divin Rousseau. And I mean, this guy is a big lad. I didn't realize how big he was, but he is an absolute bomb diffuser. He is great under the high ball. He was perfect for that type of game. I don't think he dropped a single high ball, which is really impressive in those conditions. I liked him on the Seattle side. I like Joe Taufetti. I think he's a guy to watch. Peter Malcolm went off with an HIA, I believe, and he didn't return. And Joe Taufetti, I mean, we saw it in Houston. He's going to continue to do that. I think he's going to be, if he's not already picked up, should be picked up in all leagues. And yeah, those are the 3 guys that I had down for the Seattle side.
And then I just want to mention, I mean, Dan Creel, you're probably disappointed in this one being a top pick, but I mean, 11.3 fantasy points, 97 meters gained, 7 tackles. Like, this is a low game for Dan Creel. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to get you higher points. So the fact that it's 11.3 in a matchup like this. Shifting on over to the San Diego side, we talked about Josh Henderson and how clutch he was from the boot. I mean, Thomas Awake, a guy that I was very high on going into the season. I mean, 2 breakdown steals, 5 tackles, 53 meters gained, nothing spectacular. But again, if you're getting those breakdown steals, and if Awake shows that he can do that here and there, he's kind of supplementing that kind of electric scoring opportunity that he can get. But again, I think all San Diego players, at least the sentiment that I'm getting from this match, if they're not going to perform at the same level that they're going to be performing as they did last year with Richard Judd at that 9 position, I think all fantasy players take a hit here for the election. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes forward.
100%. I was actually really surprised with Hugh Roach. I think first it was surprising to see him start, but the fact that he, one of the big issues that I've heard is that his line-out throw. I'm no line-out expert, but apparently his line-out throw, it seemed like that improved. And he looks good. I mean, he looks good on the fantasy-wise, putting up 9.6 points.
Yeah, with 4 turnovers. I mean, that you change that, he's in double digits if he just kind of minimizes some of that. So and 16 tackles is crazy.
Yeah, and maybe a guy we need to be a little bit concerned about is Christian Poitevin. I mean, having 0.1 fantasy points is not what you expect from a guy who we think is one of the top 5 fantasy back rows in the league. So yeah, hopefully we get a turnaround. And again, it's the first week. Things turn around quickly. We've seen guys start slow. I think we saw Riker Hatting start pretty slow last year too. So yeah, there's always room for turnaround.
And then last guy, Greg Peterson. I mean, you had high hopes for him coming into this season, coming over here to the San Diego Legion. I mean, 15 tackles, 7 fantasy points, not a lot, but for the second row position, you're quite happy with that. And I think Greg Peterson will be pretty consistent, at least getting you that kind of near double-digit scoring if he's able to put tackle numbers like that.
100%.
All right, shifting over to Sunday with 2 of our newer teams in the league. The Miami Sharks, in their very first ever MLR match, host the Chicago Hounds in what seemed like a monsoon matchup. It was delayed a little bit before the start, and once they got to the broadcast, I mean, it was incredible. And I mean, it kind of was evident in the fantasy production that you got. I mean, only 1 player in all of fantasy scoring here in this 23-19 victory for the Hounds scored over double-digit fantasy points, and that was the kicker for the Chicago Hounds. A lot of that is due to the fact that there were so many penalty tries for the Chicago Hounds side of things. But I mean, for this first match, Miami Sharks being competitive with the Chicago Hounds team that looked pretty dominant here, especially from the set piece point of things. I'm optimistic for the Chicago Hounds, but at the same time, I'm quite optimistic for the Sharks as well.
Yeah, and I'll start off with this, is that it was super rainy conditions. It was, like you said, monsoon-like, but there's one thing that regardless of the conditions, it could have been a snowstorm, but you would have known that Miami has the biggest numbers in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, the 1 to 15, the 1 to 23, the fact that it goes from the traps all the way down to the top of the butt. I mean, those have to be the biggest numbers in the league. They're actually obnoxious.
I think they're the biggest numbers ever in the history of any rugby jersey. I hate it.
Is the team compensating for something? I don't know. I'm not too sure, but those have to be the biggest numbers in the league. I have it here in all caps, biggest numbers in the league. That was basically the only note I took down. But no, I think Miami. Look, they're starting. It was good to see them competitive with a Chicago team that I think we thought was going to do well. I think Miami made a lot of mistakes to start. Their set piece was messy.
Mm-hmm.
Their backline looked like they have a lot of growing pains, is what I called it. It just looks like they need some more cohesion. Nick Grigg, I think, is going to really benefit from more time together. Same with Thomas Inkiarte. Like, these guys just need a bit more time together. And I think we're going to see a really special backline and a really special team coming out of this Miami side. But yeah, just way too many mistakes within both 22s. And honestly, like, I don't know if it's, I don't want to say like, but it's just, there was so much talking and complaining throughout that whole game from the Miami side. I was getting a little bit sick of it, but it is what it is.
Just a little cranky. It was a good condition.
Yeah,
just,
whatever. Suck it up.
But again, we want to say too, like, all these fantasy point performances are going to be diminished because of the weather, and it's similar in any fantasy sport, right? You're just going to not have that.
Ryan, they wanted to play. I mean,
it's true.
I was surprised about how willing they're, like, Chicago. They were willing to go and, like, sideline to sideline. Like, they made it a point, and you could see in their game plan that they wanted to play into the 15s. And you know, I think that's why we saw it wasn't brutal. I mean, a guy like Adrian Carl's, like, yes, he was the kicker, but I think he had a really good game, and it's good to see that at least one guy got over double-digit fantasy points. You know?
Yeah. All right, well, let's start breaking down some of those individual performances. Again, Adrian Carls, the kicker for the Chicago Hounds, slotted in 3 penalty kicks,
he's so good.
3 penalty kicks, 3 tackles, a breakdown steal, only 28 meters game. But again, when you have those kicking duties, you're going to rack up those points.
He was clinical.
Yeah,
he was clinical for the. I mean, it doesn't show up in fantasy, but he was clinical. The way that he was able to pin Miami back, he's a big addition for this squad.
Now, I will say, this is where the concern kind of comes in, because now we talk about Billy Meeks, and there were rumors heading into the season that Meeks was going to be starting at that 10 position. And those rumors were brought to truth when that lineup came out. And as someone, for me, who drafted Billy Meeks in the first round in hopes of his center production and what he was able to do back with the Guillotines when he won back of the year, I believe player of the year, and the fantasy production that he had last season, even on a down Chicago team at that center position, this concerns me. I'm not saying that Billy Meeks is not a great player and it's not the right decision to have him at 10, but from a pure fantasy outlook standpoint, this, I think, hurts Billy Meeks' value. He's not going to have the same opportunity to get what he gets from a fantasy perspective being a distributor. He's not kicking, so he doesn't provide that same advantage that you're supposed to get at the fly half position. If he loses this center eligibility, I think this is going to be an interesting one. I don't think Billy Meeks, if he continues to play at the fly half position, 7.3 points in this one is going to live up to that first round draft capital that a lot of people spent on him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But on the bright side, for all you Billy Meeks owners, Ryan,
I'm listening.
I think that the way that they are playing is not necessarily indicative of Billy Meeks only being the facilitator at every breakdown.
Sure.
The way that I saw it was that Bryce Campbell stepped in there. I think they had ways where Billy Meeks was still able to offensively get involved. Personally, I think having Basque out on the wing, I don't know what you're doing with that when you have Julian Dominguez on the bench. You know, I think Billy Meeks would be better suited at center and have Luke Carty there as a facilitator. But yeah, I mean, you have to see. I think that's a tough game to judge him on, though. I think you have to look at it at a different game. Try to see what happens. He might be able to be one of those attacking fly halves like a Davey Coates, or even though he's not kicking, still have that attacking ability and be able to score tries as well.
It just concerns me so much.
Yeah,
it's
for
just,
sure.
In a
Well,
fantasy, like, it's just such a loss when the guy that you're slotting, because I'm predicting that he's going to lose his center eligibility if this is the direction that they're looking for. There's just no advantage of having a guy that's not kicking at your fly half position. So
yeah. Well, hey, for Bryce Campbell owners, I think that looks good. Bryce Campbell, I thought looked good. I think he looked really good at the center position. I know he didn't put up that many points. Just checking out here. I mean, it was 6.1 points. Again, bad conditions, but I thought he looked pretty good. I think he's going to continue to be involved in that offense quite heavily. Another guy on the Chicago side, Ryan, that I have questions about is Augsburger. I did not see the same involvement that he had in the San Diego offense that he had on the weekend, which is a bit troubling for Augsburger owners. I mean, again, conditions play into it, but conditions does not mean that you score. What did he put up? Like 4 points?
4 points, only 29 meters gained, 2 tackles in
Like-
the full 80 that he played in. Not a
Like that-
Augsburger-esque.
Right? Yeah. Like, so what that's something to watch for sure, because it does not look like he's being involved in that offense as much as he was last year with San Diego.
And I mean, the lowest point total that Augsburger scored last season was 5.7 in round 15. And he didn't
Yeah.
even play a full match in that one. So it's concerning that he's opening up the year with 4 fantasy points. Again, I think the big kind of overarching theme here is that monsoon game. We'll take it with a grain of salt, but there are things to look out for here moving forward. Quickly to the Miami side, Maddie. Philippe Echeverry. I mean, I think he's going to pan out to be a pretty solid player for you fantasy-wise. I mean, 4 penalty kicks, a conversion kick, 9.6 fantasy points in crazy conditions. I think this guy's going to pay off in what you paid for him. If you were high on Echeverry going into this season, talk about kicking. I mean, Echeverry is going to be a very, very good kicker here in this fantasy year.
Yeah, very good kicker. Pretty accurate from the tee, but honestly, like, I just wrote here, Echeverry is nasty, all caps, because open play as well. Like, he is an attacking force, and his sevens background is definitely shown through in a lot of that. Another guy that I do want to point out on the Miami side is also Manuel Ardejo. He did get a yellow card, which hurt his fantasy stats for sure. But the nice thing is that, he's showing a lot of promise. 10 tackles, 27 meters gained, not too much, but again, he was off for 10 minutes with the yellow card. And yeah, I mean, he's a hard ball runner. That guy's a hard ball runner.
Yeah. All right. Well, 23-19 victory there for the Chicago Hounds in what was a pretty weather crazy game. We'll see what these two teams are going to be able to do, hopefully in better conditions coming up next week. But a game that I feel like we don't need to touch that much on, the second game of Sunday, the New England Free Jacks taking on Anthem Rugby Carolina in their home opener.
This is straight up men against boys, Ryan.
Love to see the turnout for Carolina there, but 46-13 and a dominant win. It played out exactly the way that we thought it was going to play out. I mean, I guess we'll talk about. I don't even know if it's worth breaking down. I mean, it was just a dominant performance from
Ryan. Are you a bit worried about society? The fact that so many people, 2,300 people, were willing to publicly come and watch a murder?
It's good. That's good. But I think I'm optimistic that there's that much support for this Carolina team. I mean, if they're willing to sit through a beating like that, I mean, they'll be willing to sit through anything. And maybe that was the reasoning behind the MLR scheduling this tune-up game at the start of the season. They're able to get it out of the way. Home opener hype, get the people out, and now hopefully it's uphill here, maybe a little bit for Carolina. But again, I think let's just hop right into the fantasy performers because there's not much to break down this matchup. Free Jacks dominated. Carolina was obviously what we all expected.
Before we hop into the fantasy performers, let me say this. I think Carolina will continue to be a team that you want to kind of hope your set piece plays against.
Yeah.
New England Free Jacks feasted against this set piece. Mm-hmm. And the Carolina set piece is literally one scrum was sliding back. They weren't getting pushed back. They were sliding back as if they were on a sled, as if they were pushing a scrum machine. So yeah, if your set piece is playing against this Carolina team, you're a pretty happy guy that week.
And I think it's going to be kind of matchup happy too as well, because I mean, it's going to be all about, just dominating this.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I think New England Free Jacks missed out on opportunities here. They could have scored more.
Yeah.
They made mistakes. They got a little sloppy with the ball because they were up by 700 points. But obviously, we got to talk about old team of the week here, Reese McDonald.
Yeah, Reese McDonald taking team of the week for the fly half position in the Fantasy Ruckers League just because he has fly half eligibility right now. I expect that to change after these matches go on. He was listed as fly half by the New England Free Jacks.
How did we forget about this guy?
Yeah. right?
Why did we just forget about the gas that this guy and he showed in the last half of the season? I mean,
Incredible.
obviously he was going to show out. He is he's so good.
3 tries, 222 meters gained, 2 tackles, a breakdown steal to rack up 40.8 fantasy points. And I think is higher than any other total that we had all of last fantasy season.
Yeah.
I think this might be the best performance that we've had. And he opens up week 1 with this.
That's what happens when you bring Carolina in. You know,
it's true.
We get record high fantasy points.
It is true. So Reese McDonald, obviously the team of the week performer there. Other good solid performers, basically list off the Free Jacks. I mean, Vian Conradi, 13.6 fantasy points, 8 tackles, 62 meters gained, and a try. I expect the tackle numbers to go up here. So this is kind of, again, that baseline. You use the first round capital on him. I'm optimistic about Vian Conradi. And then Ben Lesage. I mean, I got to be pretty confident with this guy. 2 tries in this one. Obviously, Leroux Milan's still out with his injury. There are rumors that he's going to be back sooner rather than later. But Ben Lesage, I mean, looking solid here.
Yeah, but Ben Lesage isn't the one that's going to be hurt by the Leroux Milan return anyways. I think it will be Wayne Vanderbank. So I think Ben Lesage will be safe, and it looks like he's going to have a better season than last year based on, I mean, take with a grain of salt there playing the Anthem.
And then obviously we've talked about this guy before, friend of the show, Andrew Quatrin, taking advantage of the dominant set piece that was for the New England Free Jacks. 31 meters gained, 5 tackles, but adds that try off of the set piece. So Quatrin, if he can keep taking advantage of the dominance that the New England Free Jacks will bring in their set piece, he should be the main benefactor of that. Any other guys on the New England Free Jacks side before we quickly switched on to the select few guys for the
I do like Danyan Morgan Pudarangi. I think he actually looked very explosive on the wing there. I thought he was definitely the best winger out of the 2 that started. And I think they're going to continue to utilize him. He was explosive, 12.1 fantasy points, 102 meters gained. I would expect him to continue to kind of putting up double-digit points.
And the only 2 guys that I really want to bring up here for the Anthem are kind of pivotal guys that are not really dependent on how the Anthem are doing, because I feel like that's the value we're going to have to find here out of Carolina, because I don't think there's going to be many matches where they're going to be performing well. And that's Oscar Collar and Junior Gaffa. Oscar Collar, if he's going to be the main fly half for this Anthem team, which again remains to be seen, 13 fantasy points a season. He adds in a penalty kick, 2 breakdown steals. Again, there's some value there if he continues to kick and start for the Anthem. And then the only other guy is, again, something that's not very reliant. He's probably going to have to do a lot of this because they're not going to have the ball much, is Junior Gaffa. He has 10 tackles in this one, added 70 meters gained. If he's going to have to continue to perform on the defensive side of the ball at that center position, he's going to have some value for you. Again, these are not guys that are going to be breaking the bank for you from a fantasy perspective. But if you need a guy in a pinch, if you don't have a kicker, I mean, I would look Oscar Collar's way if you need some points there at your flex position to kind of make sure that you get something and not get burned. Junior Gaffa is a good way to go as well.
Yep, 100% agree. I don't know. Not much to say about this Anthem side, honestly.
All right, let's go to the last matchup of the weekend, finishing off with a exciting one. I mean, the Dallas Jackals coming out with a big-time victory over the RFC Los Angeles squad in their first match at home. With the last-minute drop goal, the Dallas Jackals take it 32-29. I think what the most surprising thing here was RFC LA coming off to a hot start, 2 big tries by friend of the show, Andrew Coe, coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But then the Dallas Jackals set piece. Come on, looking pretty solid here in this matchup, and ultimately is the driving force that got them away with the win, and I think what has them at the top of the table right now in the Western Conference, getting 2 bonus points.
Yeah, I would love to say I'd be able to break down the game, but too bad the Rugby Network still hasn't put this 10:45 Eastern Time game replay up on Rugby Network, so I haven't been able to watch it, just watch the highlights. But yeah, what I took away, Dallas set piece definitely looks a lot better. And Dallas is not a team anymore that you just don't pick up any players from.
And there'll be a couple here in the waiver wire that we'll talk about.
Yeah, for sure. And then, LA, I mean, it's good to see them getting off to a hot start. It's glad to see them being competitive as well. I think it's fitting and just goes with my predictions, the fact that they gave Dallas their first ever season opener win.
And with a high-scoring game like this one, you're going to have a lot of fantasy point performers. And we had two guys here in 20-plus points. And it's not often that we see it as a front-row player. But DeWalt Coatsy, the main benefactor of that dominant Dallas set piece, I mean, 32 meters gained, 9 tackles, but 3 tries on those set piece tries. I mean, I don't think DeWalt Coatsy was in many people's lineups this past weekend, but man, he's going to be someone that people will be hunting here in this next waiver wire, which we'll talk about here. And on the RFC LA side of things, Andrew Coe. I mean, talk about the regret that Vandy's going to have. I know Mikey Tail looks bigger, but Vandy passing up on a friend of the show, Andrew Coe, and he scores 2 tries in his first match with Los Angeles. He looked fast. He looked good. That connection with him and Rory Van Voot looks solid. And Coe is going to be a force to be reckoned with here in this 2024 year on this growing RFCLA side.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring up a couple guys. So Dallas, I mean, DeWalt Coatsy was a big guy for Dallas. I think another guy for Dallas, Ronan Foley. I mean, we're talking about the things that we could expect from him. And hey, we got 21 tackles from him in 84 minutes. 52 meters gained. That's something that you love to see out of him. And I'm looking forward to continuing to seeing these double-digit performances, putting up 12 fantasy points. And then on the what are they called again? RFCLA, such a stupid name. Michael Amirez. I really like the way that he looks. He's looking like a very fantasy relevant back row player, in the sense that he is a strong ball carrier, 99 meters gained, 14.3 fantasy points. Who cares about the tackles? Who cares about the steals? 99 meters gained out of a back row. You love to see that.
Yeah. And again, DeWalt Coatsy, the Fantasy Ruckers team of the week at the front row. Andrew Coe, team of the week for back 3 for the Fantasy Ruckers. Michael Amiris, the team of the week for the back row as well. And then the 9 is a position too. So we've got to throw a Niall Saunders in there. He got only 5.6 fantasy points in a week. Yeah, for the scrum at position. So he's at that team of the week as well. I do want to just give a shout out to Rugby Wrap Up, who drafted Dan Hollinshead with the 3rd overall pick in Fantasy
do not encourage that.
Dan
do not encourage that.
Ended up starting in this match for some reason, which they got their flowers. But again, 9.8 fantasy points for him.
Jordan Chait will be back.
So we'll see there. But lots of fantasy performers in these Dallas Jackals RFC Los Angeles matchup that we probably didn't expect to be one of the most exciting matchups of the weekend. But nonetheless, it was
would be great if I would have been able to watch it.
Yeah. But all right, well, let's get into the waiver wire segment of the show and quickly kind of grind through these. Again, we're going to give some quick names here for each position that we think you should look out for. I'll start off first. Front row position. And again, the waiver wire will run through. You want to get those bids in by the end of Wednesday, midnight Pacific time, 3 a.m. Eastern time. Those will process Thursday morning, and you'll find out whether or not you get your bids. We'll start at the front row, Maddie. For me, the obvious answer is DeWalt Coatsy. Obviously, he's not going to be on many squads at 4. A lot of it hinges on, will the Dallas Jackals set piece be as dominant as they were against RFCLA? That remains to be seen. But this early in the season, you got to take the shot on a guy that can even have the possibility of scoring 3 tries at the front row position. You're not losing anything. I wouldn't put anything more than maybe 10% of your fab budget on him. But you're going to shoot your shot here. And if he continues to be the benefactor of what is a good set piece, Coatsy's going to be solid for you.
And I mean, it really depends how desperate you are for a front row. Like if you really aren't comfortable with the guy that you got, he might be, I mean, he's going to be starting for them. So he might be a nice little addition or depth to have just in case. Second row position, I'll move on, right? Because I agree with you on that front row position. I've actually got, I mean, yeah, we can talk about Frank Lacroix, but I'm going to bring up 2 guys, Reed Davis, Rhino Herbst. Those 2 guys. Rhino Herbst was started, but Reed Davis might be the benefactor of Mahonri Nakuru's injury on the weekend. It looks like he probably dislocated his shoulder by the way that he was holding it. So he's going to be out at least a couple weeks, it seems like. But Reed Davis, I mean, 46 minutes played, 9 tackles. Imagine if he played a full 80 or a 70-minute match. I mean, you might be looking at some good fantasy numbers. Obviously, Rhino Herbst is the better of the 2, but Reed Davis might be a nice little pickup there too. I wouldn't put too much down on Reed Davis, honestly, like maybe like a few dollars on him. But Rhino Herbst might be a pretty big pickup here, putting down, I don't know, like 5% of your fab potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I will shift on over to the back row now. This one's again kind of slim pickings here. I think you're still sitting on your back row player you had because there's been such an emphasis on the importance of this position in this season. So I think a lot of people on their squads have kind of that solidified back row guy. So I wouldn't jump the gun too much on anyone. And in the 10-team deep league that we are in the Fantasy Ruckers League, there really wasn't any crazy names out there. Maybe I'm taking a shot on Cam Davidovitz because of his starting on a very, very small team. Just he didn't have the tackle numbers for me. He added the try there, which was nice. But for me, I think the guy that I would go with, which is scary to think about, again, on Anthem, it's scary because he's going to be on a team that's not going to be performing this season. But if you're going to be putting up 15 tackles every single match, this is a guy that you can put in your forward flex and be comfortable with it because he's going to give you a baseline. He's not going to give you that ceiling, but if you need some depth there that's going to score you double-digit fantasy points around that every single week, O'Shaughnessy might be a guy that you can look to.
Yeah, he's not available in our league, but I'm assuming that he may be available in a lot of the other leagues. Jonah Mau, we talked about him earlier. I mean, he was available at least until game day. I would definitely look to him if he's still on your waiver wire because he's going to be a beast throughout the rest of the season.
And I'll add Corey Daniel in there as well. If he's available, I would definitely look his way. 19 tackles is incredible.
Sneaky, I know it's waiver wire pickup, but if you're looking to drop a guy, I think Thomas Tuivasa is somebody that you can probably drop.
All right, good to know. A scrum half, I'm just going to be quick here. There's no one.
Yeah.
You stay with your guy.
Yeah, the only guy that I brought up maybe is Sayosi Nye, who's was the backup scrum half on the Anthem. But I don't think Chase Sushnovich, I think that's how you say his name, was really that great. I think they need to bring in Nye and kind of switch things up. I think that he's going to end up being the starter there. And so I would look forward to kind of seeing him maybe producing a bit more if you're in need. This is desperation, people. There is nobody there to pick up.
And then again, fly half is kind of the same sentiment. So again, if you're the Rodney Iona owner, I would definitely be looking Reese Botha's way just to have that insurance. You want to kind of lock up your kickers. You want to have that insurance there at such a pivotal position because if you don't have that guy that is kicking points, you're going to lose out quite a bit. I would go, honestly, a guy that I mentioned in the breakdown of the Anthem and RFC LA game, Oscar Collar.
Yeah, you're only seeing all these Anthem guys because they're the only guys left in these positions.
And I mean, you want the starting fly half of a team. Your 8-team league, you're going to have a little bit more flexibility. There might be a little bit, but in our 10-team Fantasy Ruckers League, Oscar Collar is the only kicker that's available right now, and that's the only guy that I'm siding with here. Again, fly half, scrum half, just slim pickings right now for those guys.
Yeah, center position, I would go with Spencer Jones. I know Tanila Philemoni might not be a guy that's picked up, but he's going to lose his center eligibility in 3 weeks' time. So I think Spencer Jones is a nice little pickup there. He clearly looks like he's going to be involved in that Utah offense.
But also, I mean, don't shy away from Philemoni either. You can take 2 weeks advantage of him having center eligibility and throw him in there if that's kind of the way you want to go. I'll mention again, I feel like I'm becoming a in the closet Anthem fan, but I'm gonna say Junior. I'm gonna say Junior Gaffa. Again, baseline, not a high ceiling, but if you're looking for a little bit of insurance, you have a guy that didn't start, your JP Duplessis owner that are concerned because you didn't have your top center play and you need that center depth just to have in there. You just need a baseline to put in your lineup. Gaffa could be a guy that has some fantasy relevance and is not going to burn you with that. And then back 3 position, I'm going to go with Rory Van Voot. He looked really good, I thought, with RFC LA, controlling the back line there. The tandem with him and Co was quite well, showed the speed, 13.5 fantasy points. Van Voot's a pretty nice choice.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Hard for me to talk much on Van Voot. Again, didn't get to watch the game, so I don't know. Maybe Rugby Network put it up once in a while.
All right. No other bad. You agree? Roy Van Voot?
I'm agreeing with that one. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, again, look at your waiver wire. Those are going to process Thursday morning. You want to get those in 12 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, 3 a.m. Pacific or Eastern time there for those bids to be locked in. All right, let's quickly go through the week 2 preview and break down what we think is going to happen. First matchup on the Saturday, 2 p.m. New England Free Jacks taking on Old Glory DC. I think this one's a pretty easy one for me. If you're not taking on the Carolina Anthem, it looks like Old Glory DC was struggling out the gate here, and it looks like the New England Free Jacks are going to do pretty well against Old Glory DC. Not the same sentiment of me playing all my Free Jacks guys, but I'm pretty confident with my Free Jacks guys heading into this one.
Yeah, I got to agree there. I would look at the set piece. I think New England Free Jacks set piece is going to do fairly well against Old Glory DC team. So I'd look there and definitely look at the backs as well. I think this New England Free Jacks offense is lethal, and I don't think Old Glory DC is going to be able to stop it. Ryan, I'm going New England Free Jacks here.
Yeah, I'm going New England Free Jacks, and Vandy went New England Free Jacks as well. I will say, before we kind of continue on the games too, Maddie, congratulations. I mean, the Rangers picks came out kind of a supplement to the predictions that we're making on our show, but you went perfect last week. 6-0 in all the matches. I went 5-1 in the matches, and then Vandy, of course, he may have beat you in this one, but he went 500. Classic.
Classic Vandy.
3 of 6 in those.
Classic
ones. So,
Vandy. Yeah, I'll be going 6-0 again this week, so don't even worry about it.
We'll see how it goes. We're all going New England Free Jacks in this one, so it's not going to change the record here. No one's going to make any ground in this opening matchup. I'm still confident with my high Old Glory DC. It will be interesting to see how the lineup comes out, though. Danny Tusitala, will he be back in? Not sure. Jason Robertson, great and bow dynamic there. Should be interesting to see in that case.
Yep.
Shifting on now to the second match of Saturday, the Utah Warriors taking on the Chicago Hounds. Again, watch party here with the Fantasy Ruckers. Look out for that YouTube live link that will be coming out on socials. This one should be an interesting one. Chicago Hounds are dominant. Utah coming out to a slow foot, but we'll see whether or not Utah can turn it around. There are a lot of fantasy relevant players here. I'm excited to see kind of how this turns out, and I think we're going to discover more about the Chicago Hounds team a lot in this matchup, especially if the weather conditions cope up.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think we'll find. I'm hoping to see a big game out of Nate Oxberger. I'm hoping to see Julian Dominguez be starting. So yeah, looking for some good stuff out of there. Utah Warrior wise, we'll see. The Chicago backline is very good. I would be wary in some of the fringe starts on that Utah side on starting any of those guys like Michael Manson. Do you want to start him? I'm not sure. He's going up against a pretty strong backline. So we'll have to see. This is a tough one here, but I think I'm going to go Chicago.
I'm going Chicago as well. Vandy can't shy away from his boys. He's going Utah Warriors. And again, live stream happening 4 o'clock Eastern time this Saturday. Watch with the Fantasy Ruckers. Shifting on to the last matchup the second last matchup of this Saturday.
NOLA Gold. Week 2 and they're already putting games on at the same time.
NOLA Gold taking on Anthem Rugby Carolina. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this one. Play all your NOLA Gold players. We're going to keep on doing that. Anthem will be the team that you play all your players against until further notice. I'm going NOLA Gold in this one.
I'm going NOLA Gold. And if JP Duplessis is not starting, I am going to throw a fit because this is a game where he's going to go in and he's just going to feast. That's what he's going to do. Jonah Mau, I think, is also going to feast. I'd also look at who started at hooker for NOLA. Wasn't Pat O'Toole.
Let me pull this up here.
I got it. Augusto Bohm.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have a big game. If you got him on your lineup, start him. I think he's going to be pretty big for this. But yeah, like Ryan said, start guys. This may be a boost of value for Tenille Filmone.
Mm-hmm.
Going into this week, even though he's going to lose his back three or center eligibility by week 4, I think this might be a pretty good time to pick him up.
All right, fourth matchup, last matchup is Saturday. Seattle Seawolves taking on the Miami Sharks. This one should be, again, same sentiment. I think we're going to discover more about the Miami Sharks as they continue to grow with each other. But they're taking on a Seattle Seawolves team that is pretty lethal when it comes to the defensive side. It's going to be a struggle here for Miami, I think. I think there's going to be a lot of big performers. I'm excited to see if Tony Pulu remains in the starting lineup and how he's going to do. Dan Creel should have a big bounce-back game. I'm actually thinking there's going to be a big game from Philippe Echeverri in this one. I think the defense is going to force the Miami Sharks to struggle in their scoring opportunities, and they're going to really rely on his boot to get some points on the board. I think Philippe Echeverri is going to be a good one.
Yeah, I think any problems that Miami had in the back line last week are just going to be exaggerated in this one. I'm picking Seattle in this one. I think Miami still needs a few weeks to kind of get together, and Seattle is not a good game to be able to do that.
All right, looks like we're all going Seattle, just like how we all went NOLA against Anthem Rugby Carolinas. First matchup of the Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Dallas Jackals taking on the San Diego Legion at home. This one should be interesting. We'll get to see. I don't think this is as big of a mismatch as people think it will be on paper. Dallas Jackals coming off a mega win against RFC LA last week. San Diego Legion not looking like the same San Diego Legion team like they did last year. I think this is going to be closer. I still think San Diego is going to come away with the win. Vandy thinks that as well, but I do think that the spread is going to be a little bit tighter than what people think. It's not going to be a blowout, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be a close one. San Diego will come out with the win. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens at that 10 position after that big game from Josh Henderson. Where does Lincoln McClutchy, where does Matt Giddo sit in this lineup? We don't know, and we'll find out probably on Friday or Saturday.
You get DeWald Coetzee in a $10 pickup. Are you starting him this week?
I mean, hey, if I'm spending $10 on him, I'm starting him for sure. I don't think he's going to have the same success as last week, that's for sure. But I think the Dallas set piece is nothing to scoff at anymore.
Look out for a big game from Ronan Foley as well.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Ronan Foley in this one. All right, last matchup of the weekend, RFC Los Angeles taking on the Houston SaberCats, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Oh, wait, we didn't do our picks. You're picking San Diego, Maddie, or are you picking
Yeah, I picked San Diego.
Pick San Diego. Okay, all of us are in San Diego. RFC Los Angeles, Houston SaberCats, last matchup of the weekend. This one should be an interesting one. I'm excited to see this lethal Houston SaberCats backline again perform. I think Los Angeles will also be itching for a victory in this one off that close win. I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair, honestly, between these two teams.
And two very strong backlines, Ryan, like you said.
And I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy points to be had in this one. So I want to start a lot of Los Angeles guys, and I want to start Houston SaberCats. I'm starting my Tossies. I'm starting my Andrew Coes. I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy points to take away from this last matchup.
Yeah, I mean, those are no-brainers, but I think it's looking at guys like Jason Emery, looking at guys like James Stokes, and some of the fringe guys.
A little bit of New York connection too, huh? With that Emery kick to Andrew Coe. It was pretty nice.
For sure. But I think Houston SaberCats, I think they are just together. Their team looks very good. Their set piece looks very good. Their forward pack looks strong, and their back line looks very well put together. I think Houston SaberCats take this one.
All right, I'm taking Houston. Vandy's taking Houston as well. So, Maddie, I guess if you're going perfect, I'm going perfect too. Oh my gosh,
Ryan. Yeah, you would.
I will say, in the rundown, I had all my picks there for me. So
I didn't see any of them.
But Vandy, the lone difference here, going Utah here against the Chicago Hounds has to
what a loser.
Boys. But yeah, a lot to unpack in that episode. Again, a lot to look forward to here as the Fantasy MLR season is fully going. A couple just housekeeping stuff as we wrap up the show. Make sure you're joining the weekly challenge if you aren't already. It's super fun, easy to play. Get your first taste of Fantasy MLR playing that. It's a lot of good stuff. Let's grow that 19 number to as much as we can. Keep an eye out on socials at the Fantasy Ruckers. Starts of the week, waiver wire pickups, team of the week, weekly challenge lineups. A lot coming down the wire. A lot of good information there. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll continue trudging on. Matt, are we getting wins this weekend? Are we turning the ship around quickly here after 1 week? I'm pretty confident. I think we can.
Well, I'm not going to say anything. I might jinx myself, but all I know is what is going to happen is that you're going to want to listen to my starts of the week, because my starts of the week did pretty dang good last week. So you're going to want to tune in for that when that's released on the socials, and you're going to want to make sure if you got those players, you're putting them in.
All right. Well, stay tuned. Again, get those waiver wire bids in by Wednesday evening. Get those lineups set for week 2 of another fun weekend in store for Fantasy MLR. And again, big shout out to AKP for all the work that he's doing for our website. And hey, continue enjoying the wild journey that is Fantasy MLR here at the Kickstarter 2024. Surely hasn't disappointed just 1 week in. All right, for Matt Yee, I am Ryan Yee. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, and we'll be back next week with another episode.
You stink, Vandy.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.